I remember the sound first. Claws scraping against stone in the dark. Slow, measured. I could not see them clearly, but I could hear their breathing, deep, heavy, alive. The stone had already been sealed above me. No exit, no defense. Only lions and the certainty that the law of the Medes and Persians could not be revoked. That night, I was not standing before a king. I was standing at the edge of death. The air inside the den was thick with the scent of dust and wildness. I could feel the ground tremble slightly as one of them shifted its weight. Their presence was not distant. It surrounded me. I had advised kings, interpreted dreams, governed provinces. None of that mattered beneath the earth. Titles do not quiet predators. In that darkness, there was no court, no rank-only breath, stone, and the sound of survival waiting to end. I did not shout for help. There was no one left to hear me. The decree had been sealed with the king's signet. Even he could not break it. I stood still, listening to the low rumble in their throats, aware that one movement could change everything. Death did not rush at me. It circled, it breathed, it waited. And in that waiting, I understood something this night had begun long before the stone was rolled into place. That night did not begin in the den. It began years earlier, when I was taken from Jerusalem as a young exile. I had walked through smoke and ruin before I ever walked into that pit. Babylon tried to rename me, retrain me, reshape me. But identity is not altered by distance. Long before lions surrounded me, I had already chosen whom I would serve, even in a foreign land. We were chosen for training because we showed promised young men without visible defect, capable of learning quickly. They brought us into the king's court, fed us from his table, taught us the language of the Chaldeans. They even gave us new names, as if sound alone could erase covenant. But though my surroundings changed, the memory of Jerusalem did not. I learned their wisdom, yet I did not surrender my allegiance. They set food before us from the king's table, rich, abundant, prepared to bind loyalty through appetite. Many would have called it privilege. I saw something else. I resolved in my heart not to defile myself. It was not rebellion. It was conviction. I asked for vegetables and water instead, risking offense in a court that did not tolerate defiance. Faithfulness often begins with small refusals, long before public tests arrive. The official feared for his own life if we appeared weaker than the others. I did not argue. I asked for 10 days. 10 days of water and vegetables. 10 days of quiet trust. When the time ended, we stood before them healthier in appearance and stronger than those who had eaten from the royal table. It was not diet that preserved us. It was obedience. And that small decision marked the path I would continue to walk. God granted us knowledge and understanding in every kind of literature and wisdom. And to me, he gave insight into visions and dreams. When we stood before the king, none were found equal among the trainees. I entered service not as a captive barely tolerated, but as an advisor valued. Yet elevation carries exposure. The higher one stands in a foreign court, the more closely integrity is examined. Not long after, the king was troubled by a dream no one could interpret. His demand was impossible. Tell him both the dream and its meaning. When the wise men failed, a death sentence was issued for all of us. I did not panic in the face of that decree. I asked for time. That night, I sought mercy from the God of heaven. Before lions ever circled me, death had already passed near once. That night, the mystery was revealed to me in a vision. I did not claim credit when morning came. I stood before the king and declared that no wise man, enchanter, or astrologer could uncover such secrets, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. I told him what he had seen and what it meant. The sentence of death was lifted. Promotion followed. Yet every elevation also planted seeds of envy. Kings changed, but I remained. Nebuchadnezzar's reign ended. Others rose, others fell. Empires shift faster than stone erodes. I learned to serve faithfully under rulers who did not share my faith. Influence in Babylon was not gained through noise, but through consistency. I governed provinces, advised thrones, and kept my prayers steady. Stability in foreign courts is fragile. Integrity was the only ground that did not move beneath me. When Darius took the kingdom, he appointed administrators over the provinces, and I was set above them. Not because I sought position, but because an excellent spirit distinguished me. The king intended to place me over the whole realm. That intention stirred quiet resentment. Competence invites scrutiny. Faithfulness in public office does not silence opposition, it exposes it. And those who could not fault my work began searching for another weakness. They examined my records, my judgments, my administration. They found no corruption, no negligence, no dishonesty. I was faithful in matters of state. That frustrated them more than failure would have. Finally, they said among themselves that they would not find grounds against me unless it concerned the law of my God. They could not attack my competence, so they aimed at my devotion. They approached the king with urgency disguised as unity. They spoke of loyalty, of strengthening the kingdom, of honoring his authority. They proposed that for 30 days no petition should be made to any god or man except to him. It sounded like devotion to the crown. It was calculation. The law of the Medes and Persians, once signed, could not be revoked. They were not testing policy. They were targeting prayer. The king signed it without seeing the blade hidden in the ink. The decree was sealed, proclaimed, enforced. 30 days. No prayer beyond the throne. No petition beyond his name. I was not in the room when it was drafted, but I understood its intention the moment I heard it. This was no political adjustment. It was a demand for allegiance that crossed into worship, and that boundary I could not surrender. When I learned that the decree had been signed, I did not gather supporters or draft arguments. I went to my house. My routine had not changed in years. 3 times a day, I knelt and prayed, giving thanks to the God of Israel. The law did not create my discipline. It exposed it. I knew the consequence written beneath the words of the decree. Still, I walked toward the window. I went upstairs, where the windows faced Jerusalem. The city lay far beyond my sight, but direction matters even when distance hides it. I did not close the shutters. I did not lower my voice. I knelt as I had always done and gave thanks before my God. It was not a performance, nor an act of defiance. It was continuity. I would not alter devotion to preserve position. They were waiting. I knew they would be. They entered not to confront me with argument, but with evidence. They found me praying and giving thanks before my God. That was enough. They returned quickly to the king, not with accusation alone, but with legal precision. The decree had been violated. My devotion had become their weapon, and the law they shaped now demanded my death. When I was brought before the king, I saw the weight of realization in his face. He had been trapped by his own signature. From morning until sunset, he labored to rescue me, searching for a legal escape within the law he had sealed. But the decree could not be revoked. The same authority that elevated me now condemned me. Power without foresight becomes its own prison. As evening approached, the king spoke with reluctance heavy in his voice. Your God, whom you serve continually, he will deliver you. It was not sarcasm. It was hope struggling against inevitability. I was led toward the den as the light faded. I did not resist. I had prayed in daylight. I would trust in darkness. The law demanded my life. My faith did not waver to preserve it. They removed the stone that covered the mouth of the den, and I was lowered into the darkness. The air grew colder as I descended. When my feet touched the ground, the rope slackened and was pulled away. Above me, the stone rolled back into place with a final sound that echoed against the walls. The king's seal pressed into clay ensured no rescue would come from man. Night had begun. The darkness closed in slowly, not all at once. I could hear movement before my eyes adjusted low breathing, the scrape of claws against stone, the shifting of heavy bodies in confined space. I did not know how many surrounded me. The scent of wildness filled the air. There was no torch, no weapon, no ally. Only silence between sounds. I stood still, knowing that survival would not come from strength. One of them moved closer. I felt the heat of its breath before I saw its shape. The ground trembled slightly beneath its weight. Another shifted behind me. They were not restless. They were aware. Predators do not hurry when escape is impossible. I did not shout. I did not run. I had no place to go. The decree had sealed the entrance. My life rested entirely beyond human authority now. I waited for the strike that did not come. The lions circled, but their movement held restraint I could not explain. I did not command them. I did not negotiate with heaven. I stood and entrusted myself to the God I had served in courts and exile. If he chose to preserve me, it would be by his will. If not, my allegiance would remain unchanged. Faith does not bargain when the stone is sealed. As the hours passed, the threat did not dissolve, but it did not advance. The lions lay near, their strength undeniable, yet restrained. I cannot describe what was unseen without stepping beyond what is written. This I know, my God sent his angel and shut their mouths. The power to tear was present, but it was held back. In the darkness prepared for my death, I found preservation. There were no stars to measure the hours, no light to signal the passing of time, only breath, stone, and waiting. I did not sleep as men sleep in safety, yet I was not overcome by terror. The lions remained near, their presence undeniable, but their violence withheld. The night stretched long, yet it did not consume me. What had been designed as execution became endurance under divine restraint. At last, a faint change touched the darkness above. Morning does not rush into a sealed den. It filters slowly. I heard movement outside before I saw light. Voices. Urgency. The stone shifted. The king had not slept that night, I later learned. No musicians were brought before him, and no comfort pleased him. Anxiety had replaced authority, and now his voice reached down into the pit. Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions? His voice carried both fear and hope. It echoed against stone before reaching me. This was the moment the kingdom would remember. Not the decree, not the conspiracy. The question hung between death and deliverance. I answered not with panic, but with life still in my lungs. O King, live forever. Respect remained, even after injustice. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they have not harmed me. I did not boast. I did not accuse. I declared what had been done. I was found innocent before him, and also before the king. The night that was meant to silence me became testimony. The den had not taken my life. It had revealed my faith. They lifted the stone fully and lowered ropes into the den. I felt the morning air before I felt their hands. As I was drawn upward, the same lions remained below, restrained not by weakness, but by command. When I stood before the king, he examined me carefully. No wound, no tear. No blood. I had trusted in my God, and it was visible not in words, but in the absence of harm. By order of the king, those who had accused me were brought forward, along with their families, and cast into the den before the stone was sealed again. This time the lions did not wait. Before they reached the floor, the beasts overpowered them. I did not celebrate their end. Judgment carries weight, even when it is deserved. The same pit that had preserved me became a witness to justice. Then the king wrote to all peoples, nations, and languages throughout the land, declaring that all should tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. He proclaimed him as the living God, enduring forever, whose kingdom shall not be destroyed, and whose dominion shall have no end. I had not sought proclamation. I had only remained faithful. Yet through that faithfulness, the name of my God was carried across an empire. Many remember the lions. Fewer remember the window. The den was public. The decision was private. I did not become faithful when the stone was sealed. I was faithful when I chose not to close the shutters. The night revealed what habit had formed over years. Crisis does not create conviction. It exposes it. What preserved me in darkness had been practiced long before danger arrived. I served under rulers who commanded armies and rewrote borders, yet none could alter what the God of heaven had established. The law of the Medes and Persians could not be revoked, but it could not override divine authority either. Earthly power feels absolute until it meets a higher throne. I learned to respect kings without fearing them. Allegiance to God does not breed rebellion. It anchors courage. It would have been easy to close the window for 30 days. No one would have known but me. The decree was temporary. My life could have continued without disturbance. Yet compromise rarely announces itself as betrayal. It arrives as convenience. I understood that small concessions in private weaken resolve in public, so I chose consistency over comfort. And that choice carried me through the night. Babylon gave me a new name, a new language, a new position. It offered security in exchange for silence. Yet exile does not erase covenant. I learned their wisdom, served in their courts, advised their kings, but I did not surrender the God of my fathers. Identity rooted in him cannot be rewritten by empire. The den proved what exile had tested for decades. The night among lions did not make me brave. It revealed what years of quiet obedience had shaped. I had prayed when no decree threatened me. I had trusted when promotion seemed secure. Faith formed in routine is stronger than courage summoned in panic. When darkness closed around me, I was not inventing devotion. I was continuing it. Some believe the miracle was survival. I believe the miracle began earlier. My heart did not tremble before the decree. My knees did not hesitate before the window. Deliverance was not only the shutting of lions' mouths. It was the steadiness of conviction when fear demanded silence. The den revealed preservation, but the greater victory had already taken place in obedience. I prospered during the reign of Darius and into the rule that followed, not because I mastered politics, but because I refused to let politics master my worship. The memory of that night did not fade, yet it did not define me alone. It became part of a longer testimony, that the God of Israel reigns beyond empires, beyond decrees, beyond fear. I was an old man when they lowered me into that den. I had seen Jerusalem fall, kings rise, empires shift like sand in the wind. That night was not the beginning of my faith, nor its end. It was its unveiling. The lions were real. The decree was final. The stone was sealed. Yet the God I serve lives. I did not kneel before fear. I knelt before him, and I was there.